We're going to call this meeting back to order. It's Mr. Warren's fault. He's not keeping an eye on my mic. So before we move on to agenda item number 7, I'd like to real quickly address the questions that are on agenda item number 8. So we might be able to move that out of the way, and agenda item number 11.
Commissioners, item 8 was requested by the applicant. They're not in agreement with staff comment or staff recommendation.
Okay, so we're going to hear that case. All right, what about agenda item number 11?
I think it was Commissioner Richardson that had a question.
You had a question, Mr. Richardson?
I think that was for Philip. Staff,
Philip here.
I
Go
think.
ahead and ask it. We'll address it.
Didn't ask it, so they can probably answer.
He's coming in. Here he comes.
Philip, we have a question for you on agenda item number 11, please.
Yes, ma'am.
On the staff recommendation number 4, I just want to clarify that what we're saying there is that he would be required to obtain a building permit. I'm assuming this was built without a building permit, or it,
Correct, because if it was built with a building permit, it would have come to our attention that it was a non-conforming use.
and likely that building permit will trigger the requirement to be platted.
Scott, can you answer that?
I don't think we know the answer to that, but typically,
Oh.
yes.
I apologize. I have a gentleman here who said that it's currently going through the plating process.
Okay, all right. So you're in agreement that it's going to require the building permit under your conditions?
Correct.
All right, thank you. I would move to approve it in that
Second.
case.
I don't know if we asked the public if they wanted to hear it.
Is there anybody here that wants to speak on agenda item number 11? That's ZON 2019-00015? Okay, I was thinking that I had asked that, but maybe not. So I have a motion to approve by Mr. Richardson and a second by Mr. McKay. Is that correct?
Yes.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 9-0. All right, headed back to agenda item number 7. Talk about renewable energy, Dave.
Quickly. Do we want to take? We're going to lose people. Mr.
This case,
Wait. I'm getting advice here that maybe we should move this towards the end.
okay, that's fine.
Might be here to speak, so let's, I'm sorry, Dave. Let's move on to agenda item number 8. So PUD 2019-00006.
You just made Kathy very happy.
That's not Kim Morgan, that looks like Kathy.
That's my evil twin.
Oh, okay,
I'll try to be
learn
nice.
something new all the time.
Kathy Morgan, planning staff. Good afternoon, commissioners. PUD 2019-06 is a redevelopment plan for the old Joyland, about 57 acres down on South Hydraulic, and you can see here on the map outlined by the dark line as to how large that property is. Some of it is platted, the majority of it is unplatted, as I stated in the staff report, and there is this one little piece right here that's zoned general commercial, and everything else is single-family residential. There was a fire at this location in August of last year, and most everything was burned down. There may be 1 or 2 buildings left but are unusable. There is an entrance off Hillside that comes back to, this is Range Street, and currently there are cement barricades there so that traffic can't go through to Wassell and then on up to Spruce and out. It is in an area where, according to the comprehensive plan, the community investment plans, that the intention is to take advantage of existing infrastructure. And also, this area is a large part of it is in a floodplain. So I wanted to call attention to that. This is looking north from the entrance into Joyland, looking south along what will eventually become Wassell. This is right in the middle of the park, looking where the majority of the buildings were that housed, right by the carousel, that type of thing. Let's see. Here's where the area is blocked off. This is range coming in here from the residential neighborhood to the north, and then Wassell basically dead ends into the right-of-way of K-15 and turns into Spruce Street and goes back north along K-15. And this is looking back into that residential neighborhood on the north side of Wassell. There's a lot of vegetation there, a lot of mature trees, that type of thing. Oops, sorry. And then this is looking back toward Hillside neighborhood, residential neighborhood over here. This vegetation is on the site, and as you would see by your site plan or your site map, Gypsum Creek runs through there and does form a barrier, if you will, to the residential neighborhood on the south. And this is looking from the corner of Wassell and Spruce south along as you can see on the site map, along that west property line. This is the elevated, if you can see my pointer, that's the elevated Interstate 135, and then this is all part of K-15. Oops. And so in your staff report, staff made some recommendations that are in opposition to the signage in parcel 2 signage. No problems with parcel 3. And another condition was that the applicant would record a PUD certificate with the Register of Deeds, which is normally done with a PUD approval. So it was height issues and the number of signs. Let's see. I was thinking I had site plan. You will see that there's an entrance into parcel 1 off Hillside, and then as you come down, there are 3 entrances into parcel 2 at the west end of parcel 2, and then Connemore Street allows an entrance into the parcel 3 area. So I just wanted to point that out, and I will stand for any questions.
All right, questions from the commission.
The question is,
Mr. Hartman.
is that the only way into parcel 3 is off of Conmore?
Well, yeah, there's an existing bridge there, but I don't know that that's not a traffic bridge. Is it? I think the agent could answer that better. So the applicant agent can answer that for you. I didn't get back in there to see what the condition of that bridge was or anything. So at this time, yes, it's only Connemore Street that allows access into this parcel 3.
We have Mr. Joe Johnson,
Who had questions about this?
the applicant.
Applicant.
You think we should let him ask questions? Okay. Any other questions from the commission? All right. You'll step forward, Mr. Ferris, and state your name and address. And Is there anybody else in the audience that's wanting to speak on this particular case? Okay, thank you. All
Madam
right,
Chairman, my name is Greg Ferris. I represent the applicant in this case. I'm going to be exceedingly brief.
okay.
We concur
I
with
need your
everything.
address, please.
144 South Bay Country Court, Wichita, Kansas. We concur with everything that staff has said. We accept all of their recommendations. This is a very unique case. We have never had a case where we notified 469 people. That's how many notices, and you can see the opposition that we have. Nobody is here. We've met with the neighborhood, K-15 Neighborhood Association. We attended their meeting. We made a presentation. We were at DAB. We made a presentation there. We've been very well received with all the things that we're trying to do. The only issue I have, and if you'll go to your staff report, I can go through it real quick. It's on page 3 at the top. In this area right here, along here, we are asking for 2 off-site signs to be allowed. Staff has reduced that to 1. Just so you know, the sign code would allow, yes, sir.
Tell me again, I wasn't looking at the screen. Show me
It's
again what you're
all
talking about.
along, showing up here. There it is, along parcel 2, right
Okay.
here. Along this stretch along here, based on the zoning, the sign code, we would be allowed 4 off-site signs. And so what we're asking for is not outside of what the zoning code will allow in general commercial zoning. So we don't believe that, staff has said that they only want 1 sign in parcel 2. We're asking for a second one. Realistically, we probably will only build 2 signs in the whole area. The problem is that this PUD process is very onerous and expensive because of the size of the lot. If we want to change anything in the future, it'll cost him $10,000, $15,000 to make any changes. So we've asked for that, knowing that the sign company that comes in and builds a sign may restrict the number just because they don't want the competition, but we want the ability for them to have that flexibility. So we would ask that, and just so you know, the DAB agreed with us last night and found that our requests were not out of line and recommended that we would be approved. The other issue we have is the height of the sign. Again, we're asking for 55 feet, staff's asking for 45 feet. Any of you are familiar with it know that right up in this area, there's the walkway bridge that extends 29 feet high, and we need to get above that for the cross read. Again, a sign company is going to determine what that height needs to be. It may only need to be 45 feet, but if they want 46 feet or 47 feet to get the accurate reading, then we would not be able to do it. So we've asked for the additional height. It's not uncommon. I did two 60-foot signs on Kellogg. I did a 50-foot sign on Kellogg. So we're not asking for anything that's out of character with what's been approved in the past. So we would ask that in that parcel 2, that we're okay with the off-site sign at 45 feet, but the on-site signs, we want 2, and we want them to be able to be 50 feet tall, 55 feet tall. The other issue is kind of a weird issue, and it's just because of the way the sign code is written. If he wants to have any internal signage on parcels 2 and 3, he can't really do that because the number of signs that are allowed are based on frontage, and it's all kinds of weird rules in the sign code. So we asked for the ability to do 12 small signs, and he might have the poles, and those signs might be movable, but they won't be portable signs. We're not allowed to do that, but we would be able to move those signs. And so we've asked that we be able to do 12, staff said 6. We would like that changed to 8. Again, the DAB agreed with that. And the other provision is that we ask that we only have to go to the planning director for approval of the location of those signs if they're on city right-of-way. So if he wants to do a sign right here, there's no reason for us to go to the planning director. That doesn't make any sense. Anything along the right-of-way, we agree. So I'd like the language that was taken out, and I can provide this language they have it because it was already in our request. Where it says the placement of those pole signs should be approved by the planning director where they're along city right-of-way. The other last and final issue was the number of signs in parcel 3. Those smaller signs, 150 square foot maximum signs, 20-foot height maximum. We asked for 6, staff wants 3. We think 4 would be appropriate. That's all I have. I'll be glad to answer any questions as far as the development itself. I'm trying to talk fast because I know this is a heck of a meeting for y'all.
Mr. Joe Johnson.
Since it was passed by the DAB, what was
Mr.
it?
Joe Johnson.
Since it was passed by the DAB, what was the vote?
It was 10-1.
Thank you, Greg.
I believe that's right, wasn't it? 10 to, no, not 10-1, 7-1. How many
I
people were there?
abstained, so.
Yeah, 7-1-1. 7-1-1,
Greg,
yes.
Where are you talking about these 8 signs that you want in parcel 2?
They would be anywhere in parcel 2. And they're smaller signs. They can't be more than 200 square feet, and they can't be more than 20 foot tall. They would be internal signs. So if he had a wedding and he wanted to post a sign that said this is where that wedding is, he'd be able to do that. According to the sign code, he couldn't do that without the right to do that here because of the numbers are limited. So those are what we're talking about. And we don't think that those need to be approved by the planning director unless they're on city right-of-way.
Greg, just remind us the difference between an on-site and an off-site sign.
On-site can advertise anything that is on that property. Off-site would be what your typical, you call a billboard, where you're advertising things that aren't on there and you're selling those ads.
So review for us, let's just take the off-site signs for a minute. If you'd go through again what you're requesting on parcels 2 and 3 and what the staff had recommended, would you please?
Parcel 2, we requested 2 to be 55 feet because of the elevation of the highway.
And what's the length along there? Just, our drawing is pretty small. It's
Yeah,
pretty hard to
Logan, you
see.
remember what that was? I believe it was 970 feet.
Okay, and then.
Because we had to go across that line to get to the 1,000 feet for the other 2 signs. So what the idea was is there might be one, boy, I'm having trouble with this pointer today, one in here, and then an off-site sign here that would be static, not a digital, because the state doesn't allow digital signs within 1,000 feet. And you might have one, where is that pointer? There it is. Down in here. And then one down here that's a shorter, and we agreed with the height, the shorter sign here that would be static, be a one-side reader, and it had to be a certain distance from that neighborhood, and I can't remember, it was 150 feet, I believe, from that neighborhood.
So on parcel 2, you want 2, the staff wants 1. Parcel 3 is,
2, and staff agreed with 2.
and they agreed with 2.
We didn't have a problem with it. The only thing in staff, the only thing we're asking in parcel 3 to be different was we wanted 4 of the smaller signs instead of 3, and we wanted the ability, if they're not going to be on right-of-way, to just place them as we needed them.
Other questions from the commission?
And the height difference on which ones?
Would be on the 2 off-site signs on parcel 2.
You want additional 10 feet.
Correct. And the reality is they probably will be more like 49, 50, 51 feet based on what our elevations were of the highway. We don't know that exactly, and we want the sign company to have flexibility. They don't build them any taller than they should because it gets really expensive. That extra 5, 10 feet, if it's not needed for visibility, gets very, very expensive.
Other questions from the commission? All right, thank you, Mr. Ferris.
Thank you very much.
Wait, Mr. Florence has a question.
You have so many, you are allowed so many off-site signs in a mile. Do you know how many is within that
0.
mile? 0 so far?
Because until we zone this, there wouldn't be enough zoning. Well, there would be zoning for 1. There would be enough for 1, so, but there aren't any that I know of. There's no signs in that mile, is there, Craig? Yeah, it's on the other side of the mile. Yes, that's on the other side of the mile.
Well, but that still counts as that mile.
No, it's on the other side of
The
31st
highway,
Street.
but it still counts at the.
No, because we're north of 31st. Everything south of 31st doesn't count.
There was one approved.
Is that one on Cornejo's property? But that's on K-15,
No.
and this is a,
Before I left the city, we approved one on the north side of 31st Street.
I'd have to look at that. There may be one then, and in this area, in that mile, you're allowed 5.
Okay. And you gotta have so much distance in between.
360 feet.
Okay, Mr. Warren? You have a
Greg,
question?
again, just, you're wanting 2 off-site signs not to exceed 55 foot, 4 smaller signs
On parcel 3
on parcel 3,
and 8 on parcel 2.
8 on.
And we want staff to have to approve any signs only if they're along city right-of-way. On those smaller signs. Obviously, we have to get sign permits, so they're gonna have to be approved anyway, but not by the planning director. That'd just be the sign permit process.
Thank you.
Mr. Richardson?
Yeah, deal.
Staff, could you,
On how this is a change and how you feel that would work?
Well, I mean, I think our recommendation is coming from the fact that the heights aren't needed to be visible from K-15 in particular, but also from 135. Additionally, we don't think 4 billboards we think it's excessive in this location. The applicant has already stated that they aren't going to do 4 billboards. He's indicated that the process for adjusting this is going to be onerous. However, the language in the PUD says that the changes to the sign plan can be approved by administrative adjustment.
Are you okay with that?
Yes.
Okay.
other questions? Okay. Is there anybody from there is somebody from the audience that would like to speak on this case. If you'll state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Crystal Dozier. I'm at 215 North Parkwood Lane. I'm actually speaking today as city archaeologist from Wichita State University, where I am an assistant professor in the anthropology department. I just wanted to make a statement because I received an inquiry from a member of the public about whether there was going to be any archaeological investigations done on this site prior to development. I have reviewed this area, and although it is unplatted, WSU did do a survey at some point of this area. It did not find any sites of prehistoric archaeological interest. Also, it is unlikely, with consultation with Dr. J. Price and Dr. David Hughes, that any of the existing structures are eligible for the National Register of Historic Places. So legally, there is not any need for any kind of archaeological investigation. That being said, if the contractor or developer has any interest in public archaeology or public history, I'd be happy to talk and develop a program that would work within your development scheme. Thank you.
Any questions from the commission? Okay, thank you very much. Is there anybody else from the audience that would like to speak on this case? Okay, seeing none. Mr. Joe Johnson, did you have a question?
Just waiting to make a motion.
Well, I just wanted to ask, Mr. Ferris, do you want your rebuttal time? Okay, thank you. Mr. Joe Johnson.
Hold on, Greg, but I don't always agree with Greg Ferris, but I would certainly like to make a motion that we approve based on the requests that he made.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve this application. Motion by Mr. Joe Johnson, second by Mr. Dool. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say,
We're talking about 4 off-site signs now. Right?
Aye.
all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries 9-0. You bet, thank you. Okay, so let's head on to agenda item, let's see, I've lost, 9? Yep. Agenda item number 9, PUD 2019-00007. And we have Dave up here. Well, it was something that somebody wanted to hear.
Yes. Madam Chair, this request is concerning the property. Let me get the staff report so I know what I'm looking at. I'll do with my glasses, so there they are. Okay, this is at 914 and 924 West Douglas. As you can see here, we are just about a block to the east of Seneca on the north side of Douglas Street. Property is presently zoned Central Business District. And I think it's important to note that under the current zoning, uses there, and that use, property does not trigger any requirements for any off-street parking. This is the aerial of the property, outlined in red. There are two buildings there that have been remodeled recently, and you can see the location in the comprehensive plan. This is just the general site and the PUD drawing, which is pretty simple. Now, this is the property in question. And you can see they've done a major amount of remodeling and cleaning up the exterior of the building. I also understand they've completed modifications on the inside. Here we're looking west along Douglas at this location. This is looking east. This is what's south, kind of south and east of the property in question, and that's looking directly south. In this neighborhood in the Delano area. The primary purpose behind this request, as much as anything, is to expand the uses. There is a present interest from a tattoo parlor business to locate it into this facility. It was the one that is elsewhere in the Delano area that had a fire here a number of months ago, and they would like to move into this building, but the Central Business District zoning does not allow a tattoo parlor. So that's why they have applied for the rezoning to PUD. We talked about the fact, well, you move it to GC, you can do that, but now you've got mandate to require and provide off-street parking. So they came in with the PUD. What they're asking for is continued Central Business District and office warehouse uses. The recommendation was to approve that change to PUD. However, we changed some of the language. If you'll recall, the PUD we did a month or so ago on East Douglas, it was that was the marketplace proposal. We took that same language in terms of restriction of uses and applied it here. And I think the agent has got some issues that they'd like to talk with respect to that. But with respect to this request, we are simply saying yes to the proposed rezoning to PUD, subject to the modifications outlined in the staff report. And the biggest change was to expand the uses. So, and the office warehouse district would allow the tattoo parlor. So, any questions of the staff, our planning commission?
Questions, Mr. Richardson?
So what is it that allows the tattoo parlor? It's the office warehouse use?
It's they're allowed in the office warehouse district.
And then the proposed uses are those with supplemental conditions. I'm not clear what that means.
Well, it's poorly. I think that the intention was to say anything that could otherwise be done with a conditional use would also be allowed. And if you want to tweak that language, we did not dwell on that when it came through. We were more concerned with the list of things that we were not allowing to happen within that location that otherwise would occur in the CBD, and kind of overlook that.
Yeah,
So
I don't know, it was a staff question here. Can we even pass something that says you're automatically granted a conditional use?
it does not mean you're automatically. The intent, I think, was to say that instead of just being limited to what was permitted by right, they were asking also to also have the ability to consider things that could be used as conditional uses, with the idea they'd have to go through the conditional use process.
Okay, I understand. I suggest we rewrite this in some way that makes that clear, that it just simply allows them to apply for.
If it's
the
inclined to the
conditional
commission to do that, we will make sure it gets that language in the PUD document.
Other questions from the commission? Okay. Agent or applicant, if you would like to step forward and present, you'll have 10 minutes. And if you'll state your name and address, we'd appreciate that.
We'll make it real short. It's Tim Austin with Call Valley Engineering at 200 North of Emporia. We are in agreement with staff comments. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, questions from the commission? Mr. Richardson.
Tim, your understanding, it just allows you to apply for a conditional use, does not grant those.
Right. I think Dave explained that what our intent was to allow those.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, is there anybody from the audience that would like to speak on this case? If you'll step forward, state your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Show.
Oh, I'm not, no, sorry.
No.
Okay, my name is Lynn Ziegler. I and my husband own 910 West Douglas, which is right next door to these people. The problem that I have, well, it's not really a problem. I don't mind the tattoo parlor going into the next door. My problem is we are the only building that has parking. We have parking behind my small beauty shop. We are being inundated with people wanting to buy our building for nothing. They want to park in our parking. They want to, in fact, they do park in the parking. And it's getting to the point where my husband's ladies and him cannot park behind our own little building. Now, there is an alley there, and I do not own that alley. That alley is owned from the north end to the next to First Street by the city vacated it or whatever you call it. But it's getting kind of funny in the fact that we're getting phone calls, we're getting letters on the front door with tape. We are getting people asking us, "Will you sell your building?" And my whole problem comes down to this, and the reason I'm here and have sat here for, I don't know how long
Long time.
1:30, okay, it says address parking issues. I want to know where you're going to put more parking. We don't get to use the front because the people on both sides of us use them, which we don't complain because it's open parking. I can't go down and say, ticket that person because they're parked in the street in front of our shop. But I'm getting real tired of them parking in our little bitty lot for our patrons. And really, the reason I'm here is I want to know what are you guys going to do about the parking down there? We got a bar behind us now that they park in there, and we have a person that's around that area that tells us that there's at least 5 cars parked behind there from the bar every weekend. Well, we're not there. That's no big deal. But during the day, I don't know what we're supposed to do. And I just would like somebody to understand that you're not making any parking down there. And I'm the only one, I guess, from this gentleman over here. I mean, he pulled it up for me because I was beginning to think we were just going to have to move. And he said, no, you're the only one with a parking lot.
Okay. Ma'am, your time is up.
Okay.
But does anybody want to address her parking question? Dale, you want to address Scott? You want to address her question about parking?
Sure. So the parking, right now, there's 2 things going on. One, the city is undertaking a study of downtown parking, including Delano. And that is going to be coming out, I believe, in July with some recommendations about how to address the parking, both in downtown and in Delano. Now, these are long-range recommendations. They're not quick fixes. The second thing that is going on is that there's the Delano neighborhood plan, and it also has conversations about parking and is looking at some options to provide some district-wide parking at the Lawrence Dumont site.
Thank you. Mr. Joe Johnson.
Do you have your parking lot posted?
Yes, we do, and they really nicely put another beauty shop at the end of the block there, and a lady, it was a funny story. My husband has a lady that has gone to him for 50 years, okay? And she went outside, and a gal with the beauty shop stuff got out, and she started walking away, and my husband's patron said, "Where are you going?" And I guess they got into it out there. A 90-year-old woman got into it out there. And she says, "Well, it says beauty shop parking." And so now I guess I need to get a sign that says, the address. And then I still don't think they're going to pay any attention to it.
Oh.
And then I really have. I've been thinking about, well, I'll put the 910 West Douglas on the back of the building and get me a big sign in. I mean, I don't know what to do except that, man, parking down there is bad.
How many cars have you had towed away?
Well, shall I be truthful about this? My husband will not fight with those people. If anybody's going to have anybody parked or pulled away, it's going to be me. And if it keeps getting worse, I'm going to take my little lounge chair down there and I'll sit there all afternoon or all day with my magazines and books. And when they park there, I'll just call the police. And the police, we got the letter from the police. We have the right signs up there, but they're not paying any attention to them. Yeah, I thought about charging them.
Yes, yes.
Have a good working relationship with the tenants that are going in there that you're fighting for parking with? Are you?
Well, actually, it's Mike Skanga, and I don't know what the other gentleman.
Yeah.
Tim. Okay, they've worked with us. What's happened is you guys took the parking out for the Lawrence Dumont Stadium, okay? And all of a sudden, everybody's panicking. And I mean, I'll bet he's having troubles too. I would almost bet you the same amount, a bunch of money, because everybody's scooching down.
Yeah.
And they're wanting to buy these buildings, and then they want Mike has made since we moved in 1980, he has wanted to buy our building and tear it down and make a whole parking lot. And I mean, so we're not moving.
Yeah, I'm on the opposite side of Douglas.
I know where you are. I've been to your shop.
Yeah. And so sometimes I just had to work out a working relationship where they had to develop a reputation with their customers out of respect for you. And I don't know if something like that's possible, but
Well,
just a
we're
suggestion.
like I said, it's not these guys
Yeah.
that are giving us trouble. Now, they have every right to park on the street, but it's during the day when people that don't know or they're not going to this gentleman's business or to Mike's bicycle shop. It's not those, it's people that are not familiar with the area. And there's a parking place, there's a parking lot right back there in that little building. We're just going to go back there.
Okay, we've got to move on. So any other questions from the commission? All right, thank you very much.
Can I ask what happens now?
Can you talk to, maybe
Sure.
catch up with Dave
Okay,
afterwards?
he and I have, he's becoming my
friends?
really good friend,
Okay,
telling
that's
me
good. Yeah.
with what I
Dave's a
should
good
and
guy.
shouldn't do.
Yeah, he can help you out.
Thank you so much.
You
I
bet.
appreciate your listening.
You bet. Is there anybody else from the audience who would like to speak on this case? Okay, if not, agent or applicant, would you like a 2-minute rebuttal? No? Okay, we'll bring it back to the commission for action.
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, in lightning speed, we have Mr. McKay making a motion to approve, seconded by Mr. Dool. Any other discussion?
Madam Chair, may I ask, does that include the modifications that Mr. Richards had talked about with respect to the conditional use?
Mr. McKay.
I guess it does, yes, because they agreed to it.
Mr. Dool, do you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 9-0. All right, we're on to number 10.
Moving right along.
ZON 2019 00013. I'm saving the best for last.
So you want to keep skipping over number 7?
Well, I'm trying to just get through these and come back to number 7 because I think number 7 is going to take a bit. Go ahead, Philip.
Okay. Good afternoon again, Philip Zievenberg, planning staff. Zoning 2019-13 is a application to rezone a property located near 127th Street East and East Central. You can
Philip,
see it here. Yes, ma'am.
Can I interrupt you a second? I have the voice in my ear. I have this voice in my ear.
I'm just wondering whether it actually needs to be heard, or were there specific questions that we could address directly and maybe
There were members of the
shortcut?
audience who would like to hear this case.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Carry on.
Yes. So yeah, it's East Central and 127th Street East. You can see the property here. A few pictures of the property. It is mostly vacant. It's about a 10-acre lot. It's just under 10 acres. There's a single-family home and accessory structure. Otherwise, the rest of it is undeveloped. Surrounding the property, you have a fairly new single-family dwelling development located here. There are duplexes to the southeast of the property. There's a religious temple just to the west, as well as some larger lot single-family homes surrounding the rest of the property. The purpose of this rezoning, according to the applicant, is to develop duplexes on the lot. The preliminary site plan, which is included in your staff report, would be to develop 27 lots, which would create 54 dwelling units. You would have access to the property here off of Jackson Heights Street, as well as access to the property with an improvement to a dedication for Second Street into the property as well. The preliminary plan shows a reserve for most likely a stormwater pond. I'll let the applicant address that as well. The community investments plan shows this area good for new residential. Though this is outside the established central area, it is a good example of infill development. I have received multiple phone calls about this possible rezoning. Several of the concerns have been due with the possible increase in traffic. Jackson Heights Street is only a 40-foot right-of-way with 15 of that paved, so it's basically a single road or single lane road. And then you have basically roads with open ditches on Zelta, 2nd Street, 1st Street, and Douglas down here to the south as well. We have had, I understand that that's more of a plating issue, but I was going to say it for the record of what the concerns were. I also have had concerns of people who just feel like this is not a proper location for duplex zoning in the area. And staff recommendation is to approve this zoning request based on the new development that is in the area. You have patio homes, so larger or more densely developed lots going in the area. And with that, I can stand for any staff questions.
Questions from the commission. Mr. Joe Johnson.
Has this been heard by the DAB?
No, it is going to the DAB on Monday. It did go to the DAB last month. This case was deferred from the last planning commission meeting. It was through that DAB process that we realized there was an internal mistake and not everybody in the entire notification area received notifications, so we had to defer the case to re-notify it. It will be heard by the DAB on Monday.
I assume a motion's out of order right at the present time?
But yeah, we have to have a hearing. There was people from the audience that wanted to hear this case.
Just want to defer until DAB's heard it.
Oh. I'm asking the expert.
And I will defer to law, but the DAB, actually, their recommendation is to the city council. It is not to the
I
planning
understand that.
commission. And it isn't,
From my point of view, I'd like to have the DAB recommendation before I vote on it. You can outvote me. It's fine.
my personal opinion is that that is an improper decision, that certainly you could vote against it, but it would not be a reason to deny a case, in my opinion. Because
Denying the case, I'm just
But the
deferring
applicant is
it until we-
being, everybody's here, the applicant is here expecting the planning commission to take it up, and when the DAB is not actually a integral part of what the proceedings are, it just seems like that is not appropriate, but that's up to you guys to decide. That's just my opinion.
We have a legal opinion on that? Putting you on the spot.
I think you could defer in order to add to the basket of information that you ultimately have. The DAB recommendation, if you're interested in what that is, I think for purposes of today, though, while everybody's here, it would be good to go ahead and have the hearing and let the applicant and the members of the public who have come here to be heard on the item be heard on it.
We could defer till after for a vote.
In here.
Neighbors have
Newell.
been notified.
Well, I would just say, you know, in theory, I agree with you, Joe, on that, but we've had a number of cases come up where, because of our scheduling, the DAB meetings don't necessarily match up with that. And, you know, if we do it here, we set a precedent for the future.
There's only one DAB that meets twice. The rest of them, we try and get it in front, but it doesn't work out all the time. And there's just no way for us to do that in every case. And
Was
that's,
there an urgency?
huh?
There's always an urgency.
Yeah.
The bureaucracy of these things just drag on and drag on. We can always delay. We're here, let's do it.
I've already heard it from them.
All right, any other questions for Philip? Okay, seeing none, if we could have agent or applicant step forward, you'll have 10 minutes. Oh, and don't forget to state your name and address.
Will Clevenger with Garver here on behalf of the applicant. Address is 8535 East 21st Street North, Suite 130, 67206. We're in agreement with staff comments. We feel this is a good location for the duplex zoning. It's kind of secluded with trees along the perimeter, so that helps a little bit. I do know that there's some concerns from the neighborhood about the street widths, and I did speak with Lee Carmichael with traffic engineering, and he was in agreement with the idea of us signing a non-protest petition to future street improvements, and we'd be willing to do that. And then also that this area has water and sewer, so again, the infrastructure's there to support this, and we just feel that'd be a good use of that infrastructure. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, questions from the commission. Mr. Richardson.
So a non-protest petition says if the neighborhood should decide, the only way this street's going to get widened is if we have a special assessment from the neighborhood, more than likely. Is that?
Right, if
Will, you agree with that?
I don't remember the specific amount, but if a significant number of people sign the petition, then everybody would participate.
So you would agree to participate in that. And number two, you understand as part of the plating process, you're going to have to pave Second Street over to this development?
Actually, that was one thing I was going to mention. Our original layout did show having a connection to that. We've actually, since that time, we're thinking of not doing that connection, but actually vacating Second Street in the process of plating, but that's still a ways down the road.
Well, how can you vacate it if you're not a party to on either side of it?
We would need to make sure that the property owners would be in agreement to sign the vacation or the application.
And so you would only have one way in and out. I mean, I know we're ahead of ourselves here. It's just not a plating hearing, but it does bear on this and what the neighbors say. So what you're saying is your preference now is to have one entrance and exit on Jackson Street.
Correct.
Mr. Joe Johnson.
I might say
Oh.
at 54 units, they're going to have two ways in and out.
Other questions? Mr. Joe Johnson?
The development there to the northeast, what is that?
This one is single family, and down to the southeast is two family from this development.
Those fairly new homes to the northeast?
When I was out there visiting the site, not all of the lots are even constructed yet, or not all the homes on those lots are constructed.
The ones that are there are new?
It's a mixed bag. You got commercial on Central, you got mobile homes just to the south, you got older homes mixed in, and then you got some really nice new neighborhoods. It's a hodgepodge of all kinds of housing.
Any other questions from the commission? Okay. Thank you. Any members of the audience want to speak on this case? If you'll step forward, state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
All right, I'm John Greenstreet, 384 Jackson Heights, and I'm the developer of the addition of the new homes immediately to the, let's see if I can get this thing to work. Whoop, I lost something. Oh, anyway. Yeah, there we go.
You can just go.
All right, I developed this addition here. And then I also developed all the land across the front where Front Gate is and the hotel. I built that, and then I built the other office buildings here. When we went out there years ago, it was a mixed bag of stuff, and but we developed it into what it is today. And what I'm really concerned about is drainage. Right now, we're getting about, with that big rain we had, we got about 10 inches or almost a acre foot of water coming off this 10 acres, and it flows directly behind these houses here to get to the lake. There's no underground storm drainage. And what I proposed to my engineer is I will give a drainage easement, underground drainage easement, across the north end of my addition, Marinita. It's only an 8-lot subdivision, but we have 6 houses either under construction or built already, 2 lots left. And then I have the additional lot to the north between our addition and the Plaza or Coldwell Banker parking lot. And that's where I will propose to provide a underground drainage easement, because an acre foot of water doesn't sound like much, but when you have 10 acres, that's a lot of water. And it runs directly behind our property to get to the lake, and we just can't have that. It's just got to be managed more productively.
Okay, questions from the commission? Mr. Richardson?
So, John, how would the water get from this development to the north side of your new development?
Well, they're going to have to, if they're going to improve the road, they're going to have to put in a storm drain system of some sort.
But if the road's not improved, it's going to have to go down the drainage ditch to get there.
Well, they're going to have to do a better way to do it, because it's not working now, and it comes within a foot probably, and we've got quite a bit of grade there. But you get a 10-inch rain like we've had here in the last couple of weeks, and we're also getting a lot of water, a lot of water off the east 11 lots of Front Gate.
Okay.
That's coming across here, coming down and then across over into our property here, and then down and then across. So couple that together with what's coming off that 10 acres currently, it's a massive amount of water. And it needs to be managed, otherwise we're going to be flooding our basements.
So do you, I guess we need to have the applicant speak to that, but it looks like they were going to put in a retention pond there.
Well, they can put in a retention pond, but that doesn't solve the problem. We're still getting a lot of water. And in an inordinate amount of rain, you get an inordinate amount of water flowing across the road. It's not being handled properly.
Other questions from the commission? Mr. Joe Johnson.
Made the statement that water is flowing off of Front Gate.
Right.
To the south.
It comes to the east, down Jackson Heights to the south, and then
not onto the property directly north of you.
No, a little bit comes across. I don't know why that does it. A little bit comes across right here, but 90% of it comes down this way, meets with the water coming off this 10 acres, and then goes back across here.
Are you developing the duplexes?
No, I'm not. I'm just here to, I want to make sure the understanding is that something needs to be done with the drainage. I'm not opposed to the duplexes. I just want to make sure someone steps up and says, we can handle the drainage and get it properly done.
So that'll be addressed with the drainage plan, won't it?
Drainage is the plating issue.
I understand that. I was just questioning, was front gate not,
Well, front gate
They don't
has
address
a
that?
retention pond, but not all the water runs to it.
so was the drainage plan not followed?
Obviously not.
Not a question for today.
Okay, any other questions from the commission? Mr. Richardson?
Just have a comment that staff let John know I'm not sure he'll get a notice when the plating process starts, so if somebody could let him know, he needs to be involved at that level.
We'll do our best. We don't send out individual notices, but they are required to put up the sign.
Okay.
Okay,
But,
watch for the sign.
but, yeah, just keep in touch with staff, John, so when this comes to the subdivision committee, you need to be there and talk about it, because that's when we have the city staff here with the
Right.
stormwater people and all that.
Well, that's our main concern. I understand the development because we've done a lot of it up here, and it's important to digest some of this ground properly, but we need to handle the water properly too. Thank you.
Thank you.
What was the notification area?
For this site, I believe it's 500 feet, or I forget the size.
50?
I mean, or is 350 or 550? 350, okay. One of the two.
So it doesn't even get to front gate, right?
No, it got two blocks south of Zelta, or two houses south of Zelta.
The very southern end of the notification area clipped the bottom lots of front gate.
Ma'am, can you state your name and address, and you'll have 3
Teresa
minutes.
Burks, 11825 East 3rd Street North. I live right here. I realize some of this has more to do with a plotting issue, as I understand. Most of the people in the neighborhood would like to see this stay single family. The reason we would like this to stay single family, this neighborhood right in here has been here for 40 years. This street is a gravel road that they threw some asphalt on, so it is not a proper road designed for heavy traffic. This road here, if I walk down that with my dogs, and I have one dog on each leash, and I have 6-foot leashes, I have dogs in ditches on both sides of the street. The ditch is very minimal, so if I have to get over because a car's coming down the road, because there are no sidewalks in our area, so the only place I have to walk is in the street, then I have to be in the ditch. We have a lot of new young families in this neighborhood. These new young families like to ride their bikes, they like to walk. There is absolutely no way that, sorry, I lost my pointer, that Jackson Heights can handle 27 duplexes, 54 families, potentially 110 cars down this road twice a day. Right here, I would ask you to go look at that section. I apologize, I didn't submit pictures. It's 12 foot wide, and on one side of the road is a creek, and the other's the back of these houses. They cannot widen that up in order for traffic to adequately get in and out on to Central from Jackson Heights. This road, they can. This is this gentleman's private road, and it is stated private road. I actually had a picture I didn't bring. There was a vehicle parked right here, and you could barely get around it going around the corner because the streets are that narrow. So the community concern is that these streets are very narrow. Now, they kind of did this to make it look like it's totally empty. Right over here at 127th and Central, there is a brand-new apartment complex. Actually, it's a few years old, and they just put in a brand-new apartment complex right here on Douglas that's going to hold about 1,000 people. Douglas is in horrible disrepair. We have beach traffic going up and down it. We have temple traffic going up and down our roads. It's become almost already an unsafe place for families to walk and enjoy their neighborhood. So we would really like to see this stay a single-family road, and don't let them fool you. There's no way they can do this without opening up Second Street. And nobody on Second Street or Elson, which is going to receive a ton of that traffic, has been notified about this information. And it's just a real hazard to our community. We've
Ma'am,
had.
your time is up.
Okay, but we moved here for large lots and single-family residences. If we wanted to live in the inner city, we would have moved there. Thank you.
Questions from the commission? Okay, thank you. Anybody else from the audience that would like to speak on this case? If you'll step forward, state your name and address, you'll have 3 minutes.
Kyle Kozer, and I live at 11826 East 3rd Street. And we live here on the corner where 3rd Street and Zelta meet at a 90-degree angle. I just wanted to go on the record saying that I oppose changing the zoning to the duplexes, because if you do the duplexes with that many homes, families, cars, they are going to have to open up 2nd Street. And as Teresa said, the roads can't handle that much traffic without sidewalks and making the roads wider. And then also, our fear is if you do open up 2nd Street, what's next? Are you going to try and take Zelta all the way to Central along the back of Front Gate, along here? There's no road there. And also one of the reasons that I purchased a home in this area is we may not be zoned rural development, but we have that rural feel. All the lots are half-acre lots, big mature trees, nice and quiet, low traffic. Just don't feel that having the duplex traffic through our neighborhood is a good fit. So that's it.
Thank you. Questions from the commission? All right, thank you very much. I have a question for staff. If these aren't duplexes that are built in this area, approximately how many single-family homes could be placed in this area? Just a guess.
Currently, as it's platted as one lot. So right now, one single-family home can be rebuilt. There currently is one on there, but if it remains single-family, unless it gets replatted with more lots, it currently can only house one single-family.
Okay, so I guess I didn't ask that question right. So if it was replatted, that was a trick question.
Sorry.
If it was replatted in that way, how many homes?
Not doing the math off the top of my head with minimum square foot requirements for each single family lot. 5,000 square feet per single family lot. Again, 10 acres at 43,000 square feet per acre.
I'm not doing it in my head. It's 87.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you for the use of the calculator. Okay. All right. Is there anybody else from the audience that would like to present on this case? If you'll step forward, state your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes. Just trying to figure out.
My name's Haley Kozer, and I live at 11826 East 3rd Street North. I agree with what was said before me. I just wanted to point out the Hindu temple gets a lot of traffic in our neighborhood, and we're nervous that if you connect those streets, it's going to create more traffic, and we already feel unsafe walking because people speed down these streets, and there's no speed signs, there's no slow downs, there's nothing, and we just are concerned of the traffic mostly. And like my husband said, we want to live kind of in a rural type feel, and that's why we live here. That's it.
Questions from the commission? Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else from the audience who would like to speak on this case? All right. We have a 2-minute rebuttal. You want your rebuttal? No? No rebuttal. Okay. Then I will bring it back to the commission for action. Mr. McKay?
I didn't see anywhere in here where the street on the east of this property, which is a county road, county design road, was a requirement to be improved. I know you can't go straight north because the gentleman has a private drive to the north.
The street, the drainage, the utility extensions, all of that is considered at the time of platting.
The reason I'm asking the question, the gentleman, the presenter said they would sign a non-compete petition when the street was done. That's probably never going to happen on this street because of the people didn't want to
That's the applicant's offer, is that? That's not exactly perhaps what staff will recommend when the plat is submitted.
Well, if you look at this, there's an S that comes off just east of that condo project. It's called Jackson Heights. Somebody made the comment, you can't enlarge it. There's a creek on one side and houses on the other side. That's to county standards. And that road goes all the way to Douglas, county standards.
That's right.
So, I think we got a different problem.
You got a different problem 'cause
Than
it's-
approving with this, because if we approve this, it's liable to be killed because the plan.
It's gonna be a problem either way, whether it goes single family, because you could go in with small lots, or you go in with duplex. That
Single
aspect.
family, you can come and go west. The folks that don't want all this traffic, apartments coming around.
Yeah, but again, if you go 5,000 square foot lots, you can put almost as many single family homes as you can on a duplex. So that's tit for tat, one or the other. It's gonna get developed. It's gonna have some houses in there. The roads are bad. There's no doubt about that. The roads are bad. They need to be dealt with, but whether it's duplex or single family is almost irrelevant from that standpoint.
Well, actually, if you put single family in there and you can put 87 units, where this is 26 units, or a total of 54 dwelling units,
Yeah,
you're really gonna have
less.
less with the duplexes than you are with the single family. Oh, sorry, Mr. Joe Johnson, Mr. Dale Miller, somebody.
Obviously, if you did this lot sizes that Mr. Greenstreet has invested in the last couple of years, you wouldn't be putting 87 homes there. Is that correct?
You could not get 87 lots of the same size as that
Right.
other development. That's
And I would like to make a motion, we suspend the public hearing and defer the vote until we've had the vote of the DAB.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion to defer by Mr. Joe Johnson and a second by Mr. Richardson. Any discussion?
Public hearing, or are we just going to
Just
make it a closed deal?
just suspended the public hearing. I mean, you could continue it if you wanted to.
Talking about well, when it comes back up, will we have another public hearing?
Continue on.
Do it all again? I've got a problem with that. Just, if we're gonna have, if DAB notifications are gonna be a part of it, then we just need to make that a part of a process. But we've never done that, and I don't think we need to. I think that we've got all the information that we need to make a decision.
That's your opinion, it's not mine. I made a motion.
Any other discussion on this motion?
No, I think a little bit. People have been notified already on the zone change, so I don't think we need to defer it.
So all in favor, say aye. To defer. All in favor to defer, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, all opposed?
Aye.
Aye. So I think that's
2-7.
2-7.
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion to approve by Mr. Warren, a second by Mr. Hartman. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
3, Mr. McKay? Okay, so motion carries 6-3. All right, we're moving on. Wait,
And I have to leave.
okay, Mr. McKay, thank you for your presence today.
See you, gentlemen.
All right, so we are gonna go back and we're gonna talk about renewable energy with case number 7 DER 2019-0001.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, I will keep this as brief as I can. Start off by telling those that were not here earlier this morning, Advanced Plans did review and consider these amendments. The recommendation of Advanced Plans was to recommend the proposed amendments to the zoning regulations with respect to broad renewable energy and solar, but was to recommend, they recommended that the standards be modified to prohibit wind energy development within the rural part of the county, and that will be part of the presentation. Let me give you a brief summary of where we are on this. As you are aware, this started with a moratorium established by the Board of County Commissioners in earlier this year, with a directive to staff to come up with the standards and address the larger issue of the applicability of whether these should go forward. One of the things that the recommendation you have in front of you does, well, it actually does several things. Number one, there's a recommendation of an amendment to the comprehensive plan regarding renewable energy development and some specific recommendations. Depending on what ultimately you do, that may need to be tweaked. I don't want to dwell further on that at this point. The bulk of what you have in the staff report deals with proposed regulatory changes to the code, primarily concerning renewable energy systems with certain detailed requirements of submittal requirements. I want to back up and clarify. Currently, if a proposal came forward of any renewable energy system that's large, now the individual small facilities on your private property for your own use are permitted by right under certain conditions right now. So we're not talking about that. We're talking the large commercial facilities that are essentially at utility scale. Currently, they would require a conditional use. There's just no standards within the regulations, and that's kind of substantively what this is about. As you can see on the slide, and this is just simply a slide summary of what the draft regulations in front of you says. There are certain submittal requirements, a detailed plan, environmental assessments, social and economic impacts, detailed discussion regarding impact on the transportation system, and other supplemental information, including a reclamation and decommissioning plan submitted as a part of the submitted by an applicant for development. We then break down into two other categories. One, we talk about wind facilities, which have a different impact and a different structure of what's involved than the solar activity would. The key thing here is we're talking about a 5-mile prohibition ring around the airports and landing strips, and you had in the packet that you received in the mail a specific map to that effect. There are also detailed restrictions, one being a 2,000-foot setback from non-participating residential structures. That was discussed earlier. We implied that may have been wrong, and we've subsequently determined no, as presented to you is how that should really address, because we're dealing new development versus existing development, not what might happen in the future. I wanted to point that out. The other thing, and we talked about that in the broader general stuff, was about restriction and procedures in the growth areas of the cities. We want to take that out as written and just simply apply the standards and requirements on this is a conditional use. If it is physically within any of the growth areas of the small cities, it goes to those cities and is subject then to the review and comment based on what those cities say by the Board of County Commissioners. And we want to use that same procedure and not establish anything that's different from that. So we'll that would be cleaned up. The key thing here is, as I said, the 5-mile ring. And then we have a 1-mile limitation around the airports regarding solar facilities, not a prohibition, but a mandatory requirement with respect to supplemental verification from the FAA that the FAA, based on all of their myriad of other standards about protecting airspace around landing facilities or airports, has signed off and approved that. And we took that modeled off of what other states are doing right now with the same issue. The key thing is that we've got some maps. This is the map that you all received, which is highlighting in green the buffer areas, the 5-mile buffer around wind facilities, or around the airports for wind facilities, saying no application could occur except, if you will, in the areas that are remaining white in this map. We were asked to identify and map out what it would mean for the 1-mile ring, and that's when you get the double map that was done. This all happened since noon today. But as I said, one of the things that the Advanced Plans Committee has submitted forward to the entire Planning Commission is that within the whole body of proposed amendments, that we modify the standards for wind to basically say that we would prohibit wind facilities anywhere within the rural part of the county. And what we were requested then to map what it would mean then on a map just for the 1-mile buffer area around the airports. And that's what that map does. And I gave you a hard copy at your desk, so you got a copy of that as well. And all this is doing is showing in blue the area around the existing airport facilities in the county, that if any wind or any solar project was presented in this area, it would have to be supplemented and provided documentation that the FAA has in fact also signed off and said that that facility would be acceptable within those areas. That's what, so those are the standards. As I said, the Advanced Plans Committee has recommended to the entire Planning Commission that we move forward with the amendments, with the exception that it would be a prohibition for wind development within the rural part of the county. The other note was that on Monday, the Citizens Advisory Board for Commissioner Dennis's district, which is District 3, which is the bulk of the western part of the county, and even from the earlier map shows that it would be even the only real areas where this could be probably considered for a wind project. They met, and by a vote of 3-2, if I remember right, the Citizens Advisory Board also has come on record and said they would recommend that the county adopt regulations that prohibit wind in the rural part of the county. So that's a summary of what's happened today, including these modifications that were made this morning. So we got a handful of folks here that still want to speak. And so I will simply at this point ask if anybody's got any questions, and we'll go forward from there.
Questions from the commission? All right, looks like we have no questions at this time. So we will now take public comment. Step forward, state your name and address. You'll have 3 minutes.
Can I get that other map of the wind turbine?
Just, which one do you want?
Oh, don't forget to state your name and address, please.
This morning.
All right, my name is Brian Fair. I live at 6430 Busy Bee Court, Andale, Kansas. I live, if you look on here, I live right here in the heart of what would be the wind turbine area that it would be allowed if you were to pass this. I want to thank you for your time today and for letting me have some input into this. I am opposed, desperately opposed to industrial wind turbines in Sedgwick County. I have several reasons why, and I just want to go through those. The first one, they are an eyesore. They just really are. Nobody that has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on land, homes, and all the improvements that go along with that in the rural part of the county wants this in their backyard. They're loud. These things are huge. They're 550 feet tall. That's higher than any building here in Wichita. And they throw shadow flicker on neighbors that have, that are unsuspecting. They don't have any input into it. They would have the shadow that goes across their house every however often that rotor goes by their house. They will drive down construction of homes in the area. If a wind farm is built, no developer in his right mind is going to spend the time and money to try and build homes in these areas. This would be a losing proposition from the beginning. These are also drive families from these areas, which will stop growth in our schools and virtually stop growth in that part of the county that you'd be putting these up in. The financial benefits of these wind turbines is minimal when compared to the financial benefits of homes and families and companies thriving in these areas, and the views that would be lost due to these turbines. Property rights are a must when considering these industrial wind turbines. Why should I have to live with the downsides of these monstrosities that I don't get any benefit from? If, for some unforeseeable reason, you were to allow these wind turbines in Sedgwick County, there are several things that would be a must to have done. You'd have to have a decommissioning fund set up in escrow ahead of time that the county could control to ensure that there's a plan to take these things down once they're not in use any longer. Second, there should be minimum setbacks from the property line of 2,500 feet of non-participant landowners. There should be minimum setbacks of 2 miles from any city limit so that we don't have a restriction of growth from that town down the road. There should be no shadow flicker ever of any kind at any time on non-participating landowners' homes, ever. There should be no flashing red lights that illuminate the whole countryside at night. There is a place for industrial wind farms, and I'm not against them. In fact, I am for them in the right place. Sedgwick County is not the right place. I've lived in Sedgwick County for all of my 50 years, short of 4 years when I went to college. I love it here. We have great people, great cities, great communities, and we also have great rural areas that are and will be inevitably be grown into by our communities. I got 1 sec. Can I get 1 more minute, please, then? I have 10 seconds, actually.
You can have 10 seconds.
I'm watching the clock, and that's what I'm.
Well, they delayed starting it, and
that's not on me. I'm just trying to finish my sentence here. So why would we even consider letting a company come into our communities and limit that growth by installing these in our communities? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Question, Mr. Joe Johnson.
You're opposed to the wind, but I assume you're okay with the solar?
Well, actually, yes, I am okay with the solar. In fact, I work for an electrical contractor here in town that I have installed these things. I've put those in. I put the one in over by Rose Hill, right off Rose Hill Road. And, you know, I understand as long as it's in a rural community and it has the okay and the blessing of the community that it's in, I don't see the problem with that. But as far as the wind turbine goes, I'm adamantly opposed to the wind turbines. Thank you.
Other questions from the commission? All right, thank you. Next person that wants to speak on this case? Somebody else? No? Anybody else?
Philip Frazier, 2806 West Driftwood Circle, Wichita, Kansas, 67204. I live up just south of Valley Center. So I'm here to actually support the commercial development of industrial wind farms in Sedgwick County. There's a lot of economic opportunity involved in using a resource that is plentiful here in Kansas, here in Sedgwick County. It would be an error in foresight to not plan for that. The blanket not allowing any commercial development of wind farms in Sedgwick County does not allow those property owners that might welcome developers to commercial wind farm developers to come in and develop on their land the ability to make that decision. I also question the 5-mile radius around airports for wind. If there's a 1-mile radius with solar where we check with the FAA, then why not establish a similar radius to check with the FAA for wind. If it's the airports that are the potential issue why we're moving out to 5 miles. To me, it seems the 5 mile push basically just pushes us out of Sedgwick County. So I think that's just a convenient number. As you can see how the green pretty much takes over the county. So I guess I've addressed the, questionable 5 mile thing, the economic impact and why we would not have the foresight to try to take advantage of that. The property rights of people that own land that may be interested in allowing commercial development. And then, of course, there's also the just future generational environmental impact. Why not allow for this to happen, for this development to happen? A blanket prohibition seems very nearsighted to me. There is technology for bladeless wind power generation. And I believe, as I understand it, that would not be allowed under the current recommendation, the blanket prohibition. So what we do today not only prohibits young technologies, but any technologies that are to come in the future. And I don't see a reason to prohibit economic development in our county. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Questions from the commission?
I assume future commissions can look at innovation and change any recommendation we make today.
Yes.
Yeah, and to that, I don't know if that was addressed towards me, so I
wasn't
can
a question.
respond.
Any other questions from the commission? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the audience would like to speak on this case? All kind of seem like you just want to get out of here.
Hi, my name is Darcy Gray, and I live in Andale, 605 Countryside in Andale. And thank you for setting aside this time for comment, although after being here since 1:30, that is a little disappointing. I know there are several people who wanted to be here, but being that it's during the workday, I would encourage allowing a time for people, working families, to make their voices heard in the future. I would encourage setbacks from towns. I'm not real familiar with this map, but I think that Mount Hope and Andale deserve to be protected as well. And I would encourage at least 5 mile buffer zones from towns, schools, not just airports, state parks, Cheney State Park, which gets up to 500,000 visitors per year, according to the Kansas Department of Wildlife and Parks. They told me that when I called them myself. And there's a lot of things that I've learned about in the past 6 months about a massive wind farm that's potentially been in the works for up to a decade, which is just coming to a light, and a lot of people in my area are learning about. Just some things that don't make sense to me. It's called the Pretty Prairie Wind Energy Center. It's not near Pretty Prairie. 80 plus turbines, each 500 feet tall, which is taller than the Epic Center or the Statue of Liberty. They're not using Siemens, which is a global wind turbine manufacturer in Reno County. And I think that's a little embarrassing. They're going to sell the energy to a corporation in Boston. So people think about wind energy, and myself, I'm not opposed to wind energy, but I am opposed to some of these things and the project as a whole that don't make sense, and the unprotection for our area of the county. I encourage you to look at how meteorological radar is affected and the interference from large, massive wind turbines. And I was worried about that. After just learning about it in the past 6 months, I wondered if that was true. I called the National Weather Service, and they asked me if I was worried about this particular wind farm in Reno County. I said yes, and they declined to comment. Just this week, KFDI on Twitter released a map showing the interference, and it does actually happen. I'd encourage you to take a look at their Twitter feed. They showed very significant interference, and in fact showed that they thought storms were popping up in southwest Kansas, and it was wind farms.
And so this does happen. Does that matter? I mean, how does that affect the state park, the towns, the people in this area? Please look at that map. It was pretty eye-opening to see that it happens and to actually see it on a radar. The wind farm construction and maintenance for decades to come and the effects on roads and area property.
Ma'am, your time is up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Questions from the commission. Mr. Joe Johnson.
The 5-mile radius from airports is not something that was proposed by the Planning Commission. That's a FAA regulation.
No, that came from 3 studies by the University of Chicago, Stanford, and KU.
For interference, yeah.
That indicated that turbines have the capacity of creating vortexes up to 5 miles behind and to some extent in front. And so we adapted those to our regulations because aviation is a significant factor in Sedgwick County, and we want to make sure we don't do anything to harm the aviation industry.
Thanks for clarification.
Other questions from the commission? Okay. Is there anybody else? I can't. No, I'm sorry.
Tell him.
Hello, my name's Wayne Mans. I live at 14918 East Maple Grove. That's Mount Hope, but I actually live in Reno County, a quarter-mile into Reno County, so right across the county line. We're also right at the edge of the footprint of the Pretty Prairie Wind Farm, and I grew up in Sedgwick County, and my family and have family members that still live in Sedgwick County. My wife and I moved to eastern Reno County to raise our family in peace and quiet and enjoy country living as we both did growing up. Ever since we learned of the possibility of a wind farm being built near our home, it has become a nightmare. The red blinking lights on 500-foot tall wind turbines can be seen by the surrounding counties. I know this because at night we can see the lights of the wind farm in Harper County. Now, property values. There are studies that show that wind farms negatively affect property values from 20 to 60%, depending on placement. With the good possibility of a wind farm in our area, we and our neighbors have been asking ourselves, if we would move, where would we go? And the answer is probably Sedgwick County. I mean, that's where we were from originally, and if Sedgwick is not safe from these wind farms, I don't know where people could retreat to. Also, the areas surrounding Mount Hope and Andale, I know particularly are hot spots for high-end homes, developments. There's a lot of people that want to move to those areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from the commission? All right. Anybody else from the audience that would like to speak on this case? You'll step forward, state your name and address. You'll have 3 minutes.
My name's Tom Hager from Andale, 307 Huntington Road. And like Brian mentioned just a little bit ago, I am the insane developer that has a project going on right now. You guys just approved it a few months ago. It's at 37th North, 247th West. I myself am going to have $1.5 million tied up in this thing. So what I want to talk about is setbacks. I believe you guys have proposed 500-foot setbacks from property lines that don't have a residence. Is that correct? Okay. So my property right now that we've got 37 lots going in, a wind developer could come in and put a wind turbine 500 feet from our property line on our 116 acres. So what I'm asking is a 2,500-foot setback from non-participating property lines. I mean, one turbine could ruin the project we have going right now. When we start putting roads in a month from now after the wheat's gone, I mean, we want to sell lots. I think the only thing that makes sense for Sedgwick County, ban the wind. I mean, look at the map you have with the airports. Look at the growth around Andale. In the last 19 years, Andale, and you take a 4.5 mile circle around Andale, there has been over $90 million in improvements between road construction, utilities, and homes. You drive out there and look at some of these areas. I mean, you're talking $400,000, $500,000 up to $1 million homes. And you're wanting to put these huge structures in. It just doesn't make sense. That's all I have.
Questions from the commission? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else from the audience that would like to speak on this case? Okay, seeing none, I will bring it back to the commission. Is there somebody else?
My name is Catherine Heeger. I live at 15200 East Maple Grove Road, which is essentially, if I can find the mouse, right here in this corner. We've known about the wind farm coming in Reno County for probably a good year and a half now. We've fought vociferously against it, and the idea of it coming towards this side of the county where the most growth is along the 96 corridor and the current developments out there. My brother-in-law has a development going. I know there's one directly north of my home. There are several just in the outlying areas from Andale and Mount Hope. Both are growing communities, particularly along the 96 corridor, as I mentioned. If the setbacks are too prohibitive at 2,500 feet, the area is too populated to support or even think about putting a wind farm in. I think the metrics for ours would be 30 million, in Reno County would be $30 million, or $27 million over 30 years. That's just $1 million a year, and that's not even considering that the lifespan of these things is only 12 to 15 years at 11% efficiency. They are not a benefit to anybody. They have paltry payments to the landowners, and they're inflating their numbers by saying that everybody's going to spend their money in town. Most of the landowners are absentee. Their payments, in my opinion, probably aren't that great. $4,000 to $5,000 to sell at your neighbors create strife and just horrible conditions for everybody else. It's just not worth it, in my opinion. This area of the county is growing, and it will continue to grow if these are not put in. We moved out here 15 years ago to raise our families, as many of my neighbors and community members have. We did not plan on this. We would not have chosen this area had this been a possibility 15 years ago. I thank you for your time and your consideration in this. And as I said earlier, if the setbacks of 2,000 feet from a property line or structure which would prohibit use of your personal property are too prohibitive, the area is too populated. Thank you.
Questions from the commission? Mr. Duell?
Yes, sir.
Ready to make a motion?
Oh, I just need to make sure that there's nobody else from the audience that wants to speak on this.
And I would like to say I'm not against wind. What the gentleman mentioned over here with bladeless turbines is very fascinating, but with the current standards of things, there's just not the technology, and the current developers have an oligarchy, and I don't think the new innovative developers are really getting a foothold until the big bladed turbines are out of mode.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to bring it back to the commission for action.
Make sure there's no other speakers.
Is there still people that want to talk? Oh, okay. We'll step forward and state your name and address. And you'll have 3 minutes. I couldn't see it back there.
Good afternoon. My name is Angela Mans, and I live at 14918 East Maple Grove Road, Mount Hope, Kansas. Like my husband talked earlier, in the last year, we found that there was a wind farm coming up and potentially in our backyard within a mile from our homes. Wind energy in itself, I have nothing against it. I think there's a great place for it. However, in the populated areas where you can't provide protection for the people that are not living there or living right in the footprint of the wind farm, my neighbors and I, there's several of us that are faced with the option that we probably are going to have to move if this goes forward. This is a huge thing and a huge crisis for us, and we came out there for a nice, quiet environment. So to have the thought of our homes and our neighborhoods. Having these large flashing, strobing 500-foot towers in our backyards is pretty discouraging. Sometimes we have friends, I have a friend who has epilepsy. He drove through a wind farm and he couldn't even stay there. He couldn't handle it. So that's what moving forward, I just ask you guys to please consider these things. They have a proper place, but not in populated areas. And thank you so much for your time.
Questions from the commission? Mr. Dool, you have a question?
Ready to make a motion?
Is there anybody else from the audience that would like to speak on this case? I want to make sure I get everybody. All right.
I recommend approval of the plan presented to us by the Planning Commission to the governing body, in this case, the Sedgwick County Commission, with the exception that no commercial wind generators will be allowed within Sedgwick County, based upon the aircraft industry here and the number of airports, as well as future development of residential and commercial property.
Second.
Mr. Warren.
Got a couple questions. First one, and I find it interesting, the comment about non-development around the cities. We haven't created a circle. Would Mount Hope and Andale, which are the two that show up on the list, if they wanted to put a 2-mile buffer around their cities for a prohibition, would they have the right to do that, or would that be something that would have to be done by us at the county level?
In my opinion, it would have to be done by the county because the county has countywide zoning and the state statute does not allow small cities to have extraterritorial jurisdiction if the county has implemented a countywide zoning plan.
Thank you. The other comment that I've got, from a practical standpoint, I find it hard to believe that anybody would be able to get a wind farm this close to this much population. I do agree that population density and wind farms don't go together. Having said that, there's the possibility that we could have wind farms at our county border lines, and that the majority of the farm may be outside of the county, but a mile or so within the county could come about. And if that were the case, I would want to have a set of rules and regulations on how we would dictate to that. So I'm opposed to the absolute prohibition of wind farms in the area, even though from a practical standpoint, I don't think that they would ever get it through the process that they would have to go through. And the opposition that would come about by the residents in the area would be strong. I would want to give the wind farms that opportunity, so I will be voting against the recommended motion.
So I want to make a comment real quick, because this morning, when we had a discussion at advanced plans about this, we had the discussion about separating the renewable energy, the wind farms, from the solar panels. And so would your motion include both?
Well, it's my understanding that that would cover both, that the proposal as presented to us would allow solar energy, and we're making an exception to what was presented to us for the commercial wind energy.
Okay.
And if I might also comment in response to your comment about a project in another county encroaching on us, in my opinion, that's not our problem. If the other county wants to approve that, then they need to be able to contain that within their county. That's just my opinion.
Mr. Richardson, sorry.
A staff question. I don't know that anything we can do in this county can affect what somebody does in the next county over. I don't see how we could regulate that by allowing it in our county. Do I understand that right?
I would agree with that, Commissioner.
But we're not going to have anything to do with that anyway. The other.
And vice versa.
Yeah.
But they don't
and vice versa. The other question I would have here, just to make clear, if we have a solar energy farm, it's still going to be a conditional use. Then
Yes.
we'll have to, because one of my concerns is that we state a number of studies here that need to be done for a solar farm. What we don't state is what's the criteria that comes out of that study, would it or not be approved? And I guess my answer is we look at that as a conditional use when we see it, and we would deal with it at that time. That was my concern, that we don't have enough detail here, but if it will always be a conditional use if it's proposed. We're not approving those by right. We're simply approving those as having the ability to apply for one.
Right, they would be treated as utility majors and require a conditional use in all circumstance. And whatever studies are presented, the Planning Commission and the governing body would be able to interpret that as best they can.
Right. Okay. So we get a look at the details of each one of these. So, yeah. Okay.
Mr. Warren?
Just a point of clarification on my comments, that would be that our rules and regulations would only apply to the portion of the project that lied within our county. I wouldn't try to pass rules that would go beyond what we're doing in the other county areas. Just if there was a project that split the county line, anything within our county would follow our rules.
Okay, any other discussion on this motion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Okay, so motion carries
6-2.
6-2.
I guess I did want to get a point of clarification on the motion. Was that motion on the zoning code provision specifically?
Because we do need to, there's two portions to this. There's the code, the text amendment, and that's what I thought your motion applied to. And then, as we discussed this morning, there would need to be a second motion to address the comprehensive plan policy statements. And because we're down to a quorum, that's going to require a unanimous vote on the policy statements.
If it's a majority of the planning commission as a whole to amend the comprehensive plan. Just for order, my suggestion would be maybe to restate the motion just to make clear that if it was only on the zoning code and re-second and vote on it, just to clarify for the record, that'd be a suggestion I have if that's what it was limited to.
I'd agree with that, sure. You want to
Second.
revote?
I think you need to restate your motion is what he's asking.
I don't know. He'd have to restate it if he would state on the record that the motion was intended to be for the zoning code. If the second would agree, and if you would all vote on that, I think since the motion language would already be in the record, I think that's sufficient.
That's what I stated.
Is that what you seconded? Is that what you seconded, Joe? Okay, the second agrees. Okay. All right. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Same vote, 6-2.
And with respect then
Anybody want to
to,
make a motion on the policy statements?
and I think it's fair, based on the vote just taken on the idea to recommend a ban on wind, the policy statement would need to be modified to address the renewable energy going forward with respect to solar, but that the wind be prohibited for the reasons earlier stated, both to the Advanced Plans Committee as discussed here.
But I don't know why we have to ban the wind. We simply approve the solar as part of the comprehensive plan.
The intent is to put a standard within the comprehensive plan addressing the broader issue of renewable energy, and that for the basis that if we have a statement in the comp plan, we subsequently have a case come through, if the action is consistent with the plan, is considered reasonable if there's a legal challenge. So we're looking for a specific language in the comp plan to cover that.
But normally the comprehensive plan does not have a list of things it prohibits. It simply talks about what we want, right?
Well, but it can also say, and comprehensive plans have in other jurisdictions that I'm fully aware of, have stated so much as to say that certain things are incompatible within the community and therefore should not be allowed.
As part of the comprehensive plan.
Yes.
We're okay with that?
Yes.
Okay.
One of the things I guess I would,
We have to vote on that. I think we
Understand.
really need to have a motion regarding that again, to vote on that
That's a
as-
second
as a
motion.
whole, as opposed to just,
That's a second motion, though.
yes, that's a second motion. As a, because we just had advanced plans. But I think
Counselor wants to talk to you again.
so, I think, and I will defer some to Dale on this, but I think that the suggestion from staff would probably be, I think picking up on what Dave Yearout was saying, it would be to bring the comprehensive plan amendment language back to the planning commission. I think there would be, for a future meeting, a couple bases behind that. One of which would be that the language, it would require, not just, this isn't the only reason, this is one of several, but I think it would require unanimous vote because it has to be a majority of the planning commission. So you would need you may be able to get there today, you may not. But besides that point, you also have to have, I think you should have the specific language with the plan amendments in front of you to consider. And also, Scott had been pointing out the requirement in the statute that be done by resolution. And I think I would suggest that it may make sense to defer that item, have planning staff come back with the language on the plan amendment and present it at the next available opportunity. I'd probably suggest setting a date certain on that, and whether it's 2 weeks from now or 4 weeks from now.
2 weeks.
2 weeks, okay.
I recall in the meeting this morning, we talked about bringing that back in August, and then the comprehensive plan was going to be presented in September.
bringing it back potentially.
July and August, was that what it was?
The moratorium ends August 12th, and so we are trying to get through here in time to avoid that. But if we have to extend it, we can. But my thought is you've already taken action on the text amendment, that it shouldn't be a big deal for us to get.
Microphone.
I agree with Mr. Wagner that we ought to bring it back rather than jeopardize a possible vote here of somebody voting against it today.
Yeah, and just to clarify, Commissioner Deal, what was scheduled to come back was the Stevens report. And then, the growth trends and the comprehensive plan review. That's what we were talking about, July and August. This case, I think we can bring the amendments on the renewable energy back to you in 2 weeks.
Does that require a public hearing?
No.
But yes, it does, but we will continue the public
Yeah,
hearing.
this is a continue, you just continue it, yeah.
Not wanting to muddy the water, but to move this thing forward. I think the die has been set. I would be willing to change my vote in order to get it settled today, if that would help, or would it be, we're gonna go forward anyhow. I don't know if Mr. Terrell would be willing to change his vote, but I.
Yeah.
I would suggest that, yes.
Make that motion.
I'll second that.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carried. Let's get on to agenda item number 13. I think that if we could defer that as well, I'd entertain a motion to defer item number 13.
I second.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Johnson, second by Mr. Cooper. Say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 8-0.